I'm James Swanwick. Welcome to the Alcohol Free Lifestyle Podcast, where you learn to live a life of health, wealth, love, and happiness. Almost 500 days alcohol free. That is what our guest today, David Holdmeier, is. Almost 500 days alcohol free. Incredible. That's 16 plus months. David is a 36-year-old CFO at a consulting company in St. Louis, Missouri. He is married, has 2 daughters, and in this conversation, David and I are going to discuss how David said he felt before he joined our Stop Drinking program, which is called Project 90, his fears going into the program and giving up alcohol, how David felt when he completed his 90 days alcohol-free, how he then felt the remainder of that year remaining alcohol-free, and then some of the most surprising things that came up for David along the journey. David, great to have you here, mate. How you doing?
James, I'm excited to be here and excited to hear the 500 days.
Yeah, 500 days. I mean, could you ever believe that you would get to 500 days alcohol-free, given your drinking habits before you stopped?
I did not. I thought going into it, I thought 90 days was a lot. So here we are, and it's never been better. So I'm happy to be here.
I'll just give our listeners a couple of the highlights here of what you actually created. And then as we go into the conversation, I'll get you to elaborate on that. But David is down 50 pounds. He went from 225 pounds to 175 pounds as a result of not drinking alcohol. His blood pressure and heart rate went down 15 beats a minute. 15 beats a minute. And he says his family life is the best he's ever had. So we'll get to those highlights in just a moment. But first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and what life was like when you were drinking.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. So I think you did a nice introduction there. So I don't need to dive too much more into that. But big family person. Have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old who are about to turn 6 and 4. So a lot of time with my family. Before, I thought my drinking habits were normal. I grew up in a small town where it was kind of the norm. And so I didn't really know what the other side could be like without drinking. It's really hard to understand and know where you are until you give something up and you can see the other side and spend time on understanding how good it can be. Before I was, like you said, 50 pounds heavier. That's just a ton of weight. So just physically, I was in poor shape. Sleep was poor. My relationships weren't the best. I'll get to that more at the other pieces. Way more high strung. Realizing now I was just stressed a lot for no reason, high strung, anxious, some of those things that alcohol is actually, a lot of people think it helps reduce your stress or helps you ease. I think it was accelerating a lot of that for me. So, I wasn't working out a ton. I was just kind of in a rough patch before entering your program.
Do you know why you got into that rough patch?
I don't know that I can pinpoint one thing. It definitely accelerated during the COVID timeframe. A lot of time at home. Just had 2 little kids and felt like I was stressed. And it felt like it could be an outlet for me. It just became a habit and something that I didn't really think about. I thought about a lot, but didn't think about it as being a bad habit until it was.
I hear that a lot actually from relatively new parents, that when they have kids under the age of 5, a kid under the age of 5, but in your case, kids, that you can feel like you're always putting out fires or you're always racing to do something. And there's a lot of logistical conversations with partners, and it can get very tiring, especially when you are continuing to try to drive your career forward and do a good job in your position in a company, or if you're an entrepreneur. Is that possibly what happened with you?
Yeah, I think that's some of it, James. I also think having two kids, which is a big change in life. One kid is a big change, two kids is a big change. We had the pandemic and I was working from home. So it was a lot of different things that changed in my life, kind of around that same time, 2 or 3 year period where a lot of big changes for me. And it's kind of just growing up, right? Understanding what's going on here. There's so many things going on. There's so many places I need to be, so many things I need to do. And at the end of the day, saying, okay, I really need to relax. I earned something to relax, or I need a reward at the end of the day for doing all this. That type of thinking that led to some drinking.
And what was the quote unquote reward that you consumed most nights and what quantity of it?
Yeah, so I drank a lot of wine. And
Red
it
or white?
started red. Um, it started, I actually didn't start drinking till, let's gonna go back a little bit, but I didn't start drinking until after high school. And then I drank a lot of during college, which felt like the normal thing to do in college. Um, and then it kind of just gradually, I can now looking back, it gradually progressed up until kind of what I was telling you about with COVID. But it was, weekends, and then it was one night a week happy hour. And then it just became, okay, well, now I can have a glass or two of red wine, something at the end of the day. And then that became more and more. So it was more quantity and more frequency when I knew that something needed to change.
Mm. I love how you said, actually, I didn't start drinking until after high school, as if everyone drinks in high school.
It's just common. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it seems like it is. Unfortunately, it is a common thing.
It is. It is. It isn't it crazy. I mean, it seems crazy to me that society is in such a place where we actually have to say, "Oh, interesting fact, I didn't drink until after high school."
Yeah, still not legally, but it was after high school.
Yeah, yeah. So you were drinking more in COVID, uh, and then in 2021, as we kind of came out of COVID, I guess you'd put on a few lbs by that stage, right?
Yeah.
So did you notice that as it was happening, or did it all of a sudden you looked in the mirror and you went, "Damn, I put on a few pounds here. What's going on?"
I definitely noticed it while it was happening. I mean, even buying bigger clothes, right? I mean, when you're putting on that much weight, but it never really, I was justifying it different ways. And now looking back, I was like, oh my gosh. I've got pictures from 2.5 years ago in my basement that are framed of me and my family. And I'm like, I like actually keeping it up there because it reminds me of where I was and how far I've come. So it did, now looking back, it's like, oh wow, I really did let myself go. But in that time, it was justification, rewards, that type of mindset that kept me moving.
I know that you said, or rather, I said that you lost 50 pounds from when you stopped drinking, but did you put on 50 pounds in a similar time period? Like, was it from the start of COVID until the end, like a couple of years, 18 months? I mean, that seems like a lot, 50 pounds.
No, I mean it was gradual over probably 6 years or so.
Over 6 years, was it?
Six,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, 6 or 8
So
years.
maybe it was kind of more like 10 pounds a year,
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit
something
more
like yeah, yeah. It didn't all
like,
happen at once.
like compound interest. It just
That's right. Yeah,
creeps
not
up,
in not
right?
in a good way though.
Yeah. You referenced your wife, Abby, with me before we hit record here. What was she saying to you about this very noticeable weight gain over those years?
Yeah, I think she was. She mentioned a thing or two. She unfortunately was tiptoeing around a lot of those conversations because I would overreact if she would bring something up around my drinking or my this or that. I would have an overreaction to it. So she was unfortunately tiptoeing around those conversations, having them whenever she felt like she could. But she definitely is one of the main reasons that I started to make this change. Her and my two little ones. So I am just forever grateful for her for continuing to push me and bring that up to me.
May I ask you to elaborate a little on how she would try to broach the subject with you? Like, what would she say? And then, can you give us an example of in more specificity, if you would, on how you would react. And I think this is an interesting question, and I'm interested in your answer because this is a very common thing that happens with spouses who are married or partnered with someone who either is drinking too much or is
Yeah.
letting themselves slide or drift. How does someone, really broach the subject without the partner reacting as opposed to responding? And it seems like you're suggesting that you did react as opposed to respond. So if I just ask the question, how would she broach the subject, and then how did you react?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple small examples, and then maybe we can go, a little larger after that. But just specific things like out to dinner, and I would order my third glass of wine, and she'd make a comment like, "Do you really need that? Like, or what do we like? Why do you need that?" And I would say, "Oh, it's Friday," or "Oh, it's been a rough week," or just this is. I would say this is normal. This is just let me be. It's fine. Um, But that's a specific situation where, you could say that in every scenario, right? Like out at a party or coming home from something like a dinner and then pouring a drink after that. It's like, really, what's the point? Um, and I would just get frustrated and overreact to those comments just because of my state at that time, I guess. And probably deep down because I knew it wasn't right and I knew she was right. Um, So yeah, that's what comes to mind with it. But it is, I see it now that I'm where I am with other couples, and you can see people they don't want to approach it. It is hard for people to ask those questions or to really push someone in a direction because ultimately that person has to want to do something and make a change.
Was it Abby's questioning that led you to book a call with our organization, Alcohol Free Lifestyle, as far back as 2021? Or was it something that you decided you were going to do yourself without her probing, without her questioning, without her seemingly disapproval?
No, she definitely helped get me there. It was one conversation that multiple conversations, but one in particular that stands out that I knew it was time for me to just make some changes and um, I just looked online at something that could potentially help me and found your program. So
Mm. Is there something specifically that she said in that conversation that really did get you moving into action and booking the call?
well, she actually so it was after a weekend or I yeah, it was after a weekend and I kind of went out and partied a little too much. And
With her or without her?
no, without her. I was
Like with
gone
some
for the
friends or?
yeah, I was gone for the weekend, um, with friends. And yeah, she actually called my parents and talked to them about it, which I was not happy with. But nothing but love and respect for Abby and my parents. So when all three of them sat down with me and said, "Hey, we whatever the whatever this is, we just want you to figure it out. Whether it is a problem, quote, or we want you to get healthier. We want you to be the best version of yourself." And having that conversation, I was like, "Yep, I agree."
Was that almost like what they call an intervention?
Yeah, yeah, you could say an intervention of sorts. Yeah.
Did you walk in and they were sitting on the sofa facing you and go, sit
No,
down?
it wasn't quite like that, but close enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, and it's whenever your loved, the people you love the most are saying, "Hey, we're seeing that this is not you," from a habits, character perspective, because I wasn't always being honest, with Abby and others. So
Mm.
uh, we know that's not who you are. Something's got to change.
Mm. So then the interesting thing is that you went, okay, I'm going to make a change. You went online, you found our organization, Alcohol Free Lifestyle, and its program, Project 90. You then got on a call with our enrollment director at the time, Jim,
Yeah.
and you did not enroll,
Well,
right?
no. So this was the second time.
Oh, this was the second time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, hang on a second. Let's go back to 2021 because you
yeah,
did book a call and you spoke with us,
yeah.
flirting with the idea of joining us then.
Yeah, so
What
2021 was just Abby and I talking, and I knew that I should do something. And I decided against it. So I
Why
did
did you
recall
decide
you.
against it? Because you entertained the idea, you spoke to us about the possibility, and then you ghosted us. You actually didn't say, no, I'm not going to do it. You just disappeared. You
Yeah,
ghosted us.
I don't remember why, to be honest. Like I don't know if there was a specific thing, if I was nervous to do it, if it was, I don't know. So I just said, I'll stop for a couple months.
On your own.
Yeah, and I did. And then, so things were kind of okay. And as you know, better than most, and something I learned through your program is it comes back to the same way it was. Whether it takes a couple weeks to get there or a couple of years to get there, it's going to get there. So it did. So I took a little extended break and then kind of got back to it.
Mm. Then you had the intervention a year later, or a year after you had initially picked up the phone and spoke to us. And then you picked up the phone again, reached out to Jim on my team, and then you
Yep.
enrolled. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And why did you do it this time as opposed to a year earlier? Do you think?
I was more convinced myself that I wanted to change as well. Um, I mean, it's at the end of the day, we talk a lot about why are you doing this or having a why of why you're doing what you're doing. And I thought going into it, I was like, okay, I'm doing this for my family, for my kids, but really for me. I mean, I needed to figure some stuff out, get healthy. I was convinced I needed some changes too. So I think just having that extra push and then me knowing that something, I wanted to change as well.
Mm. All right, great. So then you obviously had some fear going into our program. And just for the listener who may not be aware, we have a 90-day stop drinking process, which is called Project 90. The University of Washington conducted a scientific study on our process in the first quarter of 2023. They took 163 participants through our Project 90 process, and the end result was is that it reduced drinking by 98%. And that's the same process that we've been running now since 2018. Uh, and we've got people who enroll in that process every single day. And so we're about to discuss that process now with David, which is exactly the same process which we have running today as we're recording this in 2024. So for our listener who maybe is unaware of that, what were your fears going into it, and what actually was your experience like during those 90 days?
Yeah. So my fears were somewhat unrelated to the Project 90 itself, to the program itself. My fears were more related to just not having alcohol in my life. It became such a big piece. So, you know, not being able to go have fun, not being able to hang out with my friends, not um, people judging me for not doing it, for not fitting in. Um, Vacations not being as much fun, no way to de-stress after work and just relax. Those are some of the big things. Just I sit here and smile now, looking back at those fears, but they were real. So I know people who are considering your program or other ways to stop. They're real, and I understand. I felt it, but you can get over it.
And what was the experience like when you were going through the 90
Yeah,
days? Yeah. What did you
yeah.
receive? What was helpful? What wasn't helpful? Were you triggered during it?
Yeah, so it was just such a great experience, the 90 days and the program. I learned so much from the coaches about alcohol business, you name it. I mean, obviously it's focused on alcohol, but you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the way people act. You learn a lot about professional life. But being brought into that community of people was really the key for me. I mean, there were so many people that I connected with and I still keep in touch with that I would call my close friends. from that program. And so having a community of people who you respect, who are professionally successful, who are parents, who are doing all those things that you see yourself doing, it makes it really, really good to connect with those people. It makes it an easier journey. Um, and so it was I would say a little challenging just to cut it off, but it just got easier and easier. And one of my things that I really focused on during the 90 days was um just not drinking, and everything else was fine. So if I wanted to eat extra candy and eat whatever I wanted, do whatever I wanted during those 90 days, I allowed myself to, without any guilt or without any remorse. It was like, okay, just focus on this one thing, remove this one thing that's holding you back, and then see where it goes from there.
How much of the early part of Project 90 felt like you were having to rely on brute willpower or motivation or white knuckling it? And at what stage did that fade away and it started to feel simple or easy?
Um, yeah, I mean, really, maybe the first week or two felt like I was a little bit like white, if you want to use white knuckling or like forcing it, just as a getting it out of the habit and out of that routine. But after that, I learned a lot of ways and tools and had the community there to where I didn't feel that way. Um, I had a plan going, something we talk a lot about during the 90 days. I had a plan for most every situation I was going to be in, which kind of helped at the beginning. If you were going to go somewhere or be a part of something, to have some sort of plan and ready to go, or some sort of response to why people are asking all these questions on, hey, you're weird, why don't you drink? To have some sort of response, those little things that actually help a lot when you're early on and um, feeling some of those pressures. And it just does. It got easier and easier, I would say, um, really after 6 months. Um, it felt like it was kind of just who I was. I really appreciate the 90 days was very key, and that was my goal. But for anyone, don't want to overwhelm anyone who's out there, but really giving it that full year is where it's at. Um, because a lot of the hard, good work that I've done really started, I would say, 8 to 12 months, where you really get to start reaping a lot of the benefits of being clear-minded and having the energy, being back in shape if you're out of shape. It does take time to rewire your brain and your habits and learn new stuff and all that. So I really appreciate the Beyond 90 and having that year mark as well, um, because I understand the benefits of now of making it that year.
Yeah, because when you graduated from Project 90, you then went into our secondary program, which is called Beyond 90, which is what do you get to create now that alcohol's out of your life. So what were some of the feelings or insights that came up for you post the first 90 days in those, remaining 9 months of that first year?
Well, I don't we would have to schedule like 2 more calls for that, but, in a lot of ways, James, I feel like I've just, um, gotten to start over in some things. It's like finding new hobbies or getting back into things, setting new goals, personal goals for myself, business goals, those kind of things, um, that I've just been spending my time on. Um, Really after that, I would say, after that initial 3 to 6 months, it's okay, now I can spend more time on getting deeper.
And some of those areas where you went deeper besides business were what?
Yeah, so I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but with my personal health, spent a lot of time on just getting back in shape. You mentioned the weight, but just walking, running, lifting weights. So my health is one area. Relationships, just reconnecting with some people, building deeper relationships with some people, meeting new people, a lot of cool new people. Um, yeah, so those are some of the big areas.
Hmm. How did your relationship with your wife Abby change?
Yeah, so two things come to mind. One, I don't know that we've been in a better spot than we are today. So um, that's just fantastic. And two, I talked to her and we both agreed this past year. So I turned 36 recently and was reflecting on on 35. Um, and it was the best year I've had. So I would say, that's not a coincidence to some of the changes I made. Um, so yeah, those are pretty big statements to make. So I'm just grateful for that.
What has Abby actually shared with you as to what she's noticed about either you or your relationship with her in this past year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not laughing at that this is a small thing, but she said, everything has changed. Everything you're doing has changed. You've changed, like from a physical perspective so much. And just we are in such better spot, just calmer, better conversations, spending more time, quality time together. I think allowing us to be better parents as well.
Just on the parenting, how are you a better father to your two daughters?
Yeah, it's been great. I never try to regret anything in my life. I think everything does happen for a reason. I know that sounds cliche to say, but I do. And I am happy that I got to this point because I was letting a lot of time pass with them, just kind of zoned out at nights or getting by on going out on the weekends. A lot of time that I wasn't present with them. I was there, and I was with them a lot, but I wasn't always present. So that's one of the main things I'm seeing is I'm present with them every chance I can. And there's still distractions in the world. There's cell phones, there's work, there's all this other stuff, but I am way more present. Just do a lot of fun stuff with them. And, we just got back from a week vacation, spring break, and I was just able to connect with them, to spend time with them on the beach and really enjoy those moments.
Mm. Is there any part of you that misses drinking? Because you're almost 500 days alcohol free as we're recording this. And a lot of questions I receive include um, when do you make that decision to never drink again? So have you made that decision? Are you still leaving that open ended? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, how I approach that. I I don't ever see myself drinking again, but I don't make the statement I'm never drinking again. I know I'm not going to today or tonight. I wake up tomorrow and I do it again. Because you never know what's going to happen in life. But I never want to. I've seen all the benefits from it. So that's how I think through that. What was the other question? I think I missed the other question. There might have been two.
It was just when did you make the decision, if you ever did, that this was going to be a lifelong commitment, lifelong lifestyle?
Yeah. And I think you also asked, like, do you miss it? And you know, it's interesting because sure, sometimes it's like, hey, I want to go zone out with the friends for 4 hours and drink and not think about anything. And it's like, okay, think through that. What's going to happen? Well, I'm going to feel terrible. And I'll probably end up back to where I was a couple, it's just a matter of time because I know from a lot of the work, and this is one good thing of many that I learned through the program was, moderation really is a myth if for a lot of people. So um I just think through that and I say, man, things are so good right now. I don't ever want to go back to how it was. So um even if it sounds nice for a couple hours, whatever the reason is that day that maybe that pops into my head to say, this sounds nice. I'm able to think through it just for a second and say, okay, yeah, that's not going to happen. Um, if that makes sense.
Well, you've actually got real experience from when you spoke with us back in 2021, seemingly about to enroll, and then at the last minute, you disappeared and kind of changed your mind, I guess, internally. And maybe you persuaded yourself that you could do it on your own. Is that what happened? Like, what was going on in your mind then, right at the moment where you had a choice to make? You're going to enroll and get some professional support, or you'll just carry on doing what you've been doing?
What changed a second? Like what changed?
Yeah, well, what was going on in your mind that made you choose moderation? What was going on in your mind that made you choose to do it on your own the first time, even faced with this choice of actually getting professional support?
Yeah, I think it was somewhat that I could moderate. It was somewhat that, back to one of my fears, I never really wanted to not be able to do it. So I felt like if I said, okay, I need help, that meant I was labeled as someone who needed help and could never do it again. And I looked at it as that, right? I never could, as like a bad thing. So I think it was that mindset, and now I don't want to. I don't want to do it. So it's interesting to see that shift.
Mm. And you didn't feel like you were labeled as someone who needed help, even though you chose the help?
Yeah, I don't feel labeled. I I think it's like now that I've been through it, it's like anything. If you're going to make a big change in your life, it is good to get coaching and help and whatever you need. There's no shame in that, and that's what if a professional athlete needs help getting in better shape or eating healthier, they get someone to help them with it. And this is
Mm.
something I needed. I obviously needed some help with in my life, and um, I was able to find you guys to help me, and have no regrets of that at all.
Mm. Yeah, just on the coaching part, I mean, no Olympic gold medalist ever won a gold medal without a coach, to my
Yeah,
knowledge. I mean, Alexander the Great conquered the whole known world by age 31, but even he was mentored by the great philosopher Aristotle for 2 years. And if you look further, then Aristotle was mentored by Plato, and Plato was mentored by Socrates. Einstein had dinner with a mentor every Thursday. If you do the research on his life, uh, Bill Gates had Ed Roberts, Oprah Winfrey had Mary Duncan, Steve Jobs had the financier Robert Friedland, Warren Buffett had Benjamin Graham, Mark Zuckerberg was mentored by Steve Jobs, Sean Parker, Martin Luther King learned from Benjamin Mays. Tom Hanks had Rawley Farnsworth. Denzel Washington was coached by Sidney Poitier. I mean, these are well-known people who decided that maybe I'll invest in a coach. Maybe I'll invest in a mentor. Seems to have worked out for them, and yet it's interesting, is it? Because even you had such resistance to hiring a coach or professional services for fear that you would be labeled that you had a problem. Isn't that so interesting, human psychology?
yeah, yeah. It's so interesting, and for the most part, it's like when you get into people, people judging or people whatever they have to say, no one really cares what you're doing. It seems, people care about themselves. People might ask you like, "Hey, are you not drinking tonight?" Or "Why aren't you drinking?" You say, "Oh, I'm not right now," or "I'm not drinking," or I don't drink anymore." Okay, they go get themselves something and move on, right? They don't really care that much. Um, so I think I had way too much concern with what other people thought, going
Yeah,
into this.
yeah, and maybe even too much concern on what you thought
Yeah.
about many things.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I really appreciate the doing this podcast with you. I'd actually pushed this off for a while because I still had some hesitation on and concern on what people thought. And it's to each their own. I've been fairly quiet about my journey, um, not hiding it in any way. If people ask me, I talk to them about it and tell them what's going on. But I've been quiet as far as not, nothing big, no Facebook posts, that kind of stuff. I keep to myself. But I'm happy to be doing this, and hopefully, if there's anyone out there who's considering it, hopefully this helps with. It's been a great decision, and I just can't say that enough.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate you having the courage to come on the podcast and share your journey with us. 500 days alcohol-free, 50 pounds lost, a stronger marriage by the sounds of it, and you're seemingly a better father to your 2 daughters as well. So congratulations, and wish you all the best on your alcohol-free journey from here.
Yeah, thanks, James. It's been great, and I appreciate you and what you put together, and we will always stay in touch.
Thank you so much for listening. For more content like this, you can check out our YouTube channel at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/YouTube. You can follow me and send me a direct message on Instagram and TikTok at James Swanwick. And you can see the results of our scientific study at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/study. If you'd like to apply to become a Stop Drinking client, you can visit alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90. I wrote a book called The 30-Day No Alcohol Challenge, which you can find on Amazon at james@alcoholfreelifestyle.com. If you're a regular listener of the show, would you please do me a big favor and give the show a rating and a review? It helps us get more listeners, and you'll be potentially helping someone else out there who's struggling with alcohol to find us, to listen to us and get support. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.